In my previous life, I ran a private equity foundation, a private equity company, sorry. And one thing I really notice is detail. And something that has been bothering me when I was looking at the pictures of the foundation and of Mrs. Kagame, and I looked at all of them for the last 20 years. And it really bothers me that it doesn't look like you've aged at all. And when I saw this performance, I think I found the secret source, the fountain of youth. I think it's the courage, it's the love, it's the hope, it's the confidence, it's the dignity, it's the values of the Imbuto Foundation that are personified in the person of Mrs. Kagame, who's a dear friend, but is also a person I often struggle to understand. Because she often seems to me as if it's two different people in one. She can be so warm, but can also be so very strict in her way. She can be so warm, but very clear about where her limits end. She can be funny, but stern at the same time. And it's all of that I see in what we do in the Imbuto Foundation, which resonates with me. She's also a mentor. And these are the many personalities. She's a mentor, she's a mother, she's a sister. It just depends on the day and what she has to do. So many of us look up to her. So she's not, please don't own her as a Rwandan leader. She belongs to all of us as a leader on the continent and as a leader in the world. I don't know how many of you are middle children born. You're not the firstborn, you're not the lastborn. Can you just quickly put up your hands? It's many of you. So I think many of you understand what it means to be a first lady when you really don't have a defined role. And if you're unlucky, and the person who was ahead of you was also your gender, you don't even get new clothes. So you kind of have to fight for your space in your family and decide what your mandate is, what you're going to do, and accept that limited resources come your way and do the best with what there is. And I think that's what the Office of the First Lady, what the Imbuto Foundation has managed to do, to determine their space, determine their mandate, and how and what they're going to do. And I'm sure many people were as shocked as I was when I first met the team at the Imbuto Foundation. I was expecting to see 100 to 150 people given these programs that are run. And when I saw the small staff complement, I was shocked at how effective and consequential their programs have been. So congratulations, not only to the First Lady, but also to her team. First ladies aren't often associated with leadership because often the only way to become a first lady is to marry a man who becomes president. So often when young girls come to me and say, oh, I want to be just like you, I want to be a first lady, I'm like, no, you need to become a president. But it doesn't mean that first ladies aren't leaders, that they're not consequential, and that they can't make a difference. When I think of Mrs. Kagame, I think of a cattle herder, because cattle herders only walk from behind, leading their herd. But the herd believes they are leading, but they're being directed from behind. So the lesson there is all of us can be leaders. All of us can direct, because leadership is wherever you find yourself. And I think Mrs. Kagame found herself in a difficult place when this foundation was started, before that when her office was started. And we were very grateful to her and her team when they came to Namibia, when she accompanied President Kagame on a state visit. And she was a co-chair of what we called Be Free Nation Building. And we engaged young people of how do you rebuild a post-conflict society. And she shared her pearls of wisdom, and what she was very clear on is that it has to be on the foundation of unity. It cannot be within divisive politics, within divisive behavior. Yes, Janet, I was listening, I was paying attention. And we had members of our genocide committee. As many of you know, genocide was committed in Namibia. And we reflected on the lessons of Rwanda and how relevant they are to Namibia. And the one thing that doesn't leave me that Namibia must take on board, and probably all of Africa, is that we must set our narrative. We must be clear on our identity. But we must also show and lead and mentor and help, but also listen to young people. So the intergenerational dialogue of who we are and how we chart the way forward is critical dialogue. And for people like Mrs. Kagame, who have programs specifically for young people, specifically about how do we entrench unity, it's of critical importance. She also said something that I don't forget, because as much as Namibia is also post-conflict, as much as we've also been through war, many of our young people are starting to speak a language that has become unfamiliar, a frightening language, a language that says, we don't care if we have to go back to war. And it's as if she knew that, because one of the things she also said that day is that peace has no price, and you must preserve it, because war is expensive. It's cheaper to maintain peace. Because that is something that the young generation also needs to be constantly engaged in. That we must find identities that are forgiving, that are based on love, that rejects divisiveness, it rejects tribalism, it rejects hatred, and it only fosters on love. We can disagree, we can dislike each other, but at the end of the day, we have one thing to do, and that is to build. It's not to break. It is easier to break than it is to build. And it makes me think of, I think it's a George Orwell quote, where it says, every generation imagines itself to be more intelligent than the one that went before it, and wiser than the one that comes after it. My children certainly think they're more intelligent than I am. I certainly feel I'm wiser than them. And somewhere we have to meet in the middle, and I believe that's the work of the Imbuto Foundation. And I believe that the legacy of Mrs. Kagame is entrenched in the values of Imbuto Foundation. And I don't see it as odd. I see it as a sign of leadership that it's the Imbuto Foundation, not the Janet Kagame Foundation. Because it's not about personality. It's about legacy. It's about a foundation that we know is going to be here 20 years from now, and where we suspect the pictures of Mrs. Janet Kagame are going to look exactly the same. Thank you, my sister. We love you, we respect you. We are not only friends of your foundation, we believe ourselves to have the privilege of being your friends. We are here for you, and we also want to look the same in 20 years' time. Thank you.